We got some interesting news coming out of the bike industry right now, and it's involving Trek. If you've been around a while, you know mostly the bikes I ride are Treks. I started mountain biking in 2020, and my first ever mountain bike was a Trek Marlin 6. So I have a lot of experience riding Trek bikes. I have a lot of information I want to share with you about those experiences as to why I think this is the biggest problem with Trek, in my opinion, from my experiences. I'm not going to say I know anything about financials or numbers or anything like that, so I'm not going to get into that. I'm just getting into it, looking at it from a consumer standpoint. So back in 2020, everybody was locked down and all that kind of stuff. So I was super bored, and I went out to a pawn shop and I bought a Specialized Cirrus, a used bike. It was cheap, it was fun to ride around and stuff like that. And I got hooked. I was like, this biking stuff is pretty fun. So I went to my local bike shop, and it was a Trek dealer. I'm really happy that they had a lot of knowledgeable employees and knew how to handle beginners, didn't make me feel overwhelmed, didn't make me feel like I had to buy the most expensive thing in the store. So I'm super grateful, and a lot of those guys that were in that store, it's been converted to a Trek store now, are still in there. So shout out to you guys for not upselling me and tell me I need something that I don't need. So once I'm done with that Specialized bike, it wasn't really built for the types of things I started to become interested in. So that's when I went into the store looking at the Trek bikes. I didn't know Trek bikes were in there before I went in there. I just said, hey, here's a bike store. Let me go in there and see what they have. So I go in there, I tell them, hey, I don't know much about bikes, but I want something that can handle the bumps and some dirt and some curbs if I want to jump those. Something that I can just use pretty much anywhere. So they tell me, hey, we have the perfect bike for you. Here's the Trek Marlin 5 that I think you would like, but I don't think that would really be a good investment in your money for what you're looking for. So I would bump up to the Trek Marlin 6. As time passes, I get better at riding, I get more comfortable on the bike, and I say, man, I need a little bit better bike because I'm feeling kind of limited on this bike. So I go back to the store and they tell me, oh, you progressing faster than what we thought. You might want to look into a full suspension. I looked at the full suspension prices and I said, no, I'm not ready for no full suspension yet. So they said, we have another bike that's a lot more capable than the Trek Marlin 6 that I think you might like without having to jump up to the full suspension. And I think you'll still have a lot of fun. And that's when they introduced me to the Trek Roscoe 7 after the Trek Marlin 6. Now, mind you, I'm enjoying both bikes. I love the Trek Marlin 6. I got the Trek Roscoe 7, riding that, loving that. Ended up going up to the Trek Roscoe 8 because 2020, so it was hard to get parts. And something happened with my dropper post, so they couldn't get the part that I needed to get it fixed. So they just credited me for the Trek Roscoe 7 towards Trek Roscoe 8. So I ended up getting the Trek Roscoe 8, which I loved even more. And I was totally hooked on hardtails at that point. And I didn't even have any interest in getting a full suspension. But a lot of my friends kept telling me I needed a full suspension to ride this place and this place. So even though I didn't want one, I was being talked into it. So I said, let's go look at some full suspensions at the same store that I bought the Roscoe from. I started looking at full suspensions, and that's when I started to notice Trek's prices are a little bit, or a lot higher than a lot of other places for the same quality and the same spec. So even though I was loving the Trek bikes, I felt like I needed a full suspension at the time because that's what everybody was telling me. But I didn't have the full suspension money for a Trek. So that's when I ended up getting the Specialized status, because at the time it was $27.99, I think. And that was way cheaper than any other bike that Trek had in the full suspension range for going spec for spec with their bike versus the Specialized status at the same price. So it was a no-brainer. I went with the Specialized status. That's a little fun fact I never told you guys. I really wanted a Trek full suspension, but because it cost so much, I just went with the Specialized status, which was a great bike, especially for the price. So eventually, after all of that, I'm learning more about bikes, learning what I like and what I don't like. I ultimately end up going back to a hardtail as my main trail bike, which is the Trek Roscoe 9. So now that you know my backstory and my history with Trek bikes, let me tell you what I think is the real problem with Trek, in my opinion. So the more and more I rode Trek bikes, the more and more I followed them on social media and stuff, I started to notice they really promote the racers and the high-end bikes and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. The racers deserve what they get, because for them to be that good, they definitely deserve some publicity and everything like that. But when I was looking at Trek, and I think how everybody else looks at Trek, is they look at them as a family, do-it-all bike. You can just cruise around on a bike. I don't think a lot of people look at Trek as this big performance brand that they show. Now, this is not a knock against Trek or anything. Those guys are awesome. I got to go to the headquarters and visit a whole lot of nice people. I like the culture that they build there. Everybody is focused on just being respectful and treating the customers well. And all my experiences with Trek, and I know a lot of you probably have some different experiences, but my personal experiences, even before the YouTube channel, were all great. I mean, that's how I ended up riding Trek up until this day, because when I first started mountain biking, they were super awesome to me, honest, and really showed me the way without trying to upsell me on a lot of stuff I didn't need. They put a lot of emphasis on the big enduro bikes and the trail bikes and all that kind of stuff. And I was reading something one day and I saw that the Trek Marlin series is the top selling bike for Trek. So it made me think, why don't they promote those bikes more? The bikes that are selling the most, that's connecting with the most people. Because I noticed something. They have a stronghold on the game, which is why they're still up there, I think. And they could have taken full advantage of that if they dug more into the regular average rider, I think, instead of trying to push all these professionals and stuff when 95% of the people don't even care about that. But one thing I noticed is the Trek Marlin is the highest selling bike that they have, but the Trek Marlin doesn't have a tapered head tube, doesn't have a through axle on the front or the rear. And those are main things that people who mountain bike want in a mountain bike. So the top selling bike has none of the things that mountain bikers want. So that goes to show you that I think they really missed the ball on really trying to stay focused on the average person, the average rider, because I got so many people asking me about the Trek Marlin, and I was like, yeah, you should get it, and this and that. But as time went on and I learned more and more about bikes, I said, wait a minute, we are paying a lot of money for these Marlins without really getting much. I mean, yeah, the Marlins are awesome bikes. I love the Marlins I had, but once you learn more about bikes and you kind of know what you're spending your money on, you say, dang, why would I buy that bike when I could go over here and get this bike with double the components that the Marlin has for a little bit more than what the Marlin is selling for? So that's what I think the big problem is. They got away from the average consumer, the average rider, and started pushing the big bikes, the Slashes, the Fuel EXs, the EXEs, and all that kind of stuff, when 90% of people don't care about those. And I know a lot of you think I was crazy for selling the Remedy to ride the Polygon Siskiyou T7, but that's honestly why. Because I said, why am I riding a $4,000 bike when I can ride a $1,500 bike and have the same amount of fun? Because I want to relate to you. I want to show you what you can do without spending all the money that you have on a bike. That's just not necessary nowadays. And I think it's really starting to hit Trek now, because a lot of people are going other ways because they can get twice as much for their money, which makes sense. I mean, I love Trek and I love the bikes, but why would I go out and buy a Trek when I can go get something with better or similar quality for way cheaper? So I think Trek just needs to get back to the average person. It's awesome to have all those other bikes, but stick to the core customers, because I think that's where people fell in love with Trek, is with the Marlins and this and that. They didn't really care about all those other expensive bikes. And to this day, I still say the Trek Slash, the new Trek Slash, is my favorite full suspension bike I've ever ridden. But that's not what the everyday person, the average rider, is looking for. So that's what I think the biggest problem with Trek is. They kind of got away from the core fan base that they built, that really love and respect the brand and just want a quality bike to ride around and hit the trails every once in a while. But let me know down in the comments what you think the problem is with Trek. I think they'll bounce back. I don't think this will take them down or it's the end of Trek or anything like that. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear what y'all have to say down in the comments. I know y'all got a lot to say, so let me hear it. I'm keeping my Roscoe 9 though. I don't see myself getting rid of that anytime soon. So the Trek Roscoe 9 is here to stay for sure. And I'll see you guys. Oh, in the next video, I'm actually talking about this subject of going back to your roots of mountain biking. So make sure you stay tuned for that video. That should be Sunday coming out. So you'll be watching this probably on a Thursday. So Sunday that'll be out. So make sure you stay tuned for that.